Greetings, and thank you for joining us today on this episode of Healing Courageously. Today I'm going to talk about, I guess I could say it's a sensitive subject. It's one that once I got into recovery, and then more than that, once I got back with Christ and in church, and I wanted to explore a lot of things. I wanted to check some stuff out in the Bible. I wanted to read some things I wanted to read about. I wanted to find scriptures about what it said about abusing children. And growing up, I'm sure a lot of us have heard our parents say that the rod and the staff. We've got to use the rod and the staff. So I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to be talking about rarely read scriptures about the consequences of abusing children. And there's some very well said scriptures. There's two particular read scriptures that if you're abusing children, you're going to want to pay attention to these. I promise you that, because the outcome of abusing children is not good. I'm going to talk about the rod and staff, what it really is. I'm going to talk about spanking. Oh yeah, I'm going to talk about spanking. I'm going to talk a little bit about all that. So let's just start with Ephesians 6:4. Let's just get right into it. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger by the way you treat them. Rather, bring them up with the discipline and instruction that comes from the Lord. Now, I'm going to get in to discipline and punishment here in a little bit, but the discipline and instructions that comes from the Lord. If you can show me in the Bible, right, where it says to hit your kids, you show me where Jesus hit any child. You show me where it says that you can emotionally abuse your child, that you can belittle him, make him feel less than. You show me that, and I'll shut up. But I can't find it anywhere in the Bible. What's the Lord say to do? It's in 1 Corinthians 13. It's just all about love. We're to love our children. We are the guides of our children for a very strong emotional and spiritual life. It's our responsibility as parents that we bring our children up in the way of the Lord. Now, the example is this, right? I've helped a lot of people that they weren't exactly brought up in the way of the Lord. Some of them had spent prison times, a lot of them were drug addicts, alcoholics, whatever. But then they get out and they've changed their ways. And they're phenomenal people. They're great people, right? They've changed their ways. And there's one particular gentleman I was working with, and his son was following in his dad's footstep as a gang member, going to jail and doing all that. And no matter what this father said to his son wouldn't change. But Dad, this is the life you led. I'm just following in your footsteps. There's that song by, it's a country song. It says, where'd you learn to pray like that, son? Dad, I've been watching you. So do not provoke your children to anger by the way you treat them. Colossians 3:21, this is so important that you find it twice in the New Testament. Fathers, do not provoke not your children to anger, lest they be discouraged. Lest they be discouraged. Those are some powerful words. My stepfather and my mother, they provoked me to anger all the time. They constantly discouraged me. They were constantly putting me down. I don't have enough time on this particular podcast to go into some really good ways of disciplining your children. But hitting never did any good. Yeah, I hear it all the time. Well, my dad and my mom beat me, and what it did for me is it taught me to respect people. Really? I know some of those people, and respect is the last thing on their list. Also, what it does is it creates a lot of resentment towards parents. And I've worked with a lot of men, a lot of women that they resent their parents for the way they were treated as a kid growing up. The way of the Lord is the way of love. And love is in 1 Corinthians 13:4. Read it. That's how we're supposed to bring our children up. Show them the way of the Lord. Other words, are you acting like you want your children? Remember, we are our children's greatest teachers. So they're looking at us and our behaviors and our actions. And that's what they're going to mimic. Jesus says to know me is to know my Father. And to know the Father is to know me. That speaks volumes right there. I know my kids, right? People look at me and they know what my kids are like. People look at my children, they're grown adults, and I haven't heard one negative word about any of my children. Yeah, no, they're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. We understand that. But to know the Father is to know the Son, and to know the Son is to know the Father. Guys, this goes really deep, and you have to have an open mind to understand all this stuff. You can't close your mind and say, well, it happened to me, and blah, 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 I'm fine. No. That doesn't work anymore. I've taken several people on journeys back through their life, and they go, man, now I understand. Proverbs 14:2 says, I think it's 14:2, I believe it's 14:29. People with understanding control their anger. So people with understanding can control their anger. A hot temper shows great foolishness. Can you control your anger? People with understanding, can you understand where your children might be? Can you understand what they might be going through at school? Can you understand some of the fears that they might be going through? You know, when I look back on my life, and I've talked to a lot of people, when I look back on my life, nobody asked me, hey, what are you afraid of? What's going on in your life? Nobody understood me. In fact, the deacons of the church would come over at 10 o'clock at night, wake me up to pray the demons out of me. I'm thinking, the demon's standing right behind you. Nobody understood me. He's just a rebellious kid, a rebellious teenager. His dad died, and it's just what he's doing. They didn't want to look into the reality of what was happening to me, being abused by a stepfather and a mother, who all the time, he was full of anger and rage. And that's what he displayed all the time. And for a while, I became full of anger and rage, but thank by the grace of God, when I got sober, I was able to switch my thinking. I was able to transform and renew my mind. And how did I do that? I've talked about this over and over again. By having a healthy community to be a part of, by having healthy mentors. You used to hear that birds of a feather flock together. Show me your friends, I'm going to show you your life. I used to laugh at that, but pretty much it's the truth. I mean, not pretty much, it is the truth. And I got areas of my life that are perfect examples. Well, we're not you, Randy. No, but there's a lot of people, right? We're people, we're human beings. This is where it gets really difficult in life, when we have to start looking deep into ourselves as human beings. Now, this isn't going to be said for an excuse, but we have to remember there's generational curses. And parents are only doing to their children today what they were taught by their parents. And I can guarantee you, I'll say abuse, but as this poor fathering or parenting come down the line, each generation got just a little bit better, but it still wasn't right. But we're in a generation now, when I work with people, it's like, you have a choice. You want to continue with this behavior, with this curse, or do you want to break it? You want to break the generational curse. Now, some people go, well, we got to talk about generational blessings. Where's that in the Bible? And I agree, yeah, we do have to talk about the blessings. We have to. But before we get to the blessings, we have to talk about the curses, because that's where our behavior comes from. And I know a lot of people, oh, come on, Randy, you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, just because it happened to me, and I'm right. Okay, we'll leave that at that. So we're going to get into something right now, the rod and the staff. And man, this is going to open your eyes, because I'm going to read a scripture to you. And this is one of the most famous scriptures in my eyes that parents use to punish, not discipline, to punish their children. Proverbs 13:24. Those who spare the rod of discipline hate their children. Those who love their children care enough to discipline them. I agree. Those who love their children care enough to discipline them. Those who spare the rod of discipline hate their children. Well, yeah, I agree. If you're not loving your child, if you're not disciplining them in the way of the Lord, if you're just letting them run wild, if you're going, here's the Xbox, get out of my hair, I got too much work to do, or here, take your iPad and go over there. It's too. I don't have time for you. Here, just bury yourself and maybe do some homework on your iPad. You're not disciplining them. So what are the rod and the staff? And I first heard about this from my psychology professor, Dr. Stan Lane Brosami. And it really opened my eyes. And then I did a lot of research. So I'm going to kind of do a lot of reading right out of my research. Psalm 23 is a beautiful poem that uses the image of God as a shepherd. So God is our shepherd, right? David, who penned this psalm, had been a shepherd himself and understood the parallel between the task of a shepherd caring for his sheep and of God caring for his people. Sheep are totally dependent on the shepherd for food, water, leadership, and guidance, and they move from place to place, just as we are dependent upon God for all that we need. Children are just like sheep. In chapter 13, Dr. Alan Berger put a great excerpt in there about what we need as human beings. And it's Dr. Karen Horney is the one that this all comes from. It's about the oak tree, and it's a phenomenal excerpt. It really just will bring things to life. But children, what do they need? They need food, not just food and water like we eat and drink. They need emotional food. They need to be fed spiritually, right? They need water. They need leadership. Man, the New Testament is just chock full of stuff about strong leadership and what it really is. They need guidance as they move from place to place, the sheep. Children need guidance as they move from age to age, from grade to grade. They need guidance all throughout their life. We will always be their parents until the day we die and they die. I'm always here for my children. They're all adults. But I'm always here when they need me. They're always going to be my children. I'm always going to be their shepherd. Yeah, they're out on their own, shepherding their own families right now, but I'm still the one that they look to. Just like what I do, it's God's the one that I look to. So just as we are dependent on God for our guidance, or we should be, our children, they're looking right at us for guidance. Children love to be disciplined. They like a disciplined life structure. In today's world, I don't know that it's true. Discipline is completely different than punishment, and it's not physical. It's so, if you can get it from the very beginning, yeah, it's frustrating. But man, I tell you what, it'll pay dividends in the long run. Sheep depend on the shepherd for protection from a wide range of predators and dangers, just as we look to God as our protector and defender. Our children need us to protect them from a lot of different things. Right? And all we can do is school them on the way the world works. And we give them enough rope to hang themselves. But when they trip, this is where it's really important. This is how they learn. They go out, whether it's a kindergarten or a senior in high school or a college kid. They're out in the world, they're having fun, they're playing in the mud. They make a mistake and they fall down on their face. It's not our job to put them down even more when they trip like that. It's our job to pick them up. Just as God forgives us, God doesn't slam us into the ground when we make a mistake. We can't do that to our children. Our children are the fruit. They're sacred. They're to be loved and cared for. And beating your child emotionally, verbally, that's not love. I don't care where you hear it from, that it is. It's not. In the New Testament, Jesus reveals himself to be a good shepherd. A good shepherd. Okay? He doesn't, what is a good shepherd? We just explained it. He looks after his sheep. He takes care of them. He feeds them. He waters them. He guides them in the right direction. All right? When you look in Psalms 23:4, this is crucial. I want you to really think about this. And here's the deal. If the Bible is the Word of God, okay, and in my view, the way I come from, where I came from, all the things that happened to me, right? And my mentors, when I got into AA, taught me one thing. This is the most important thing I think we could all learn. Either God is everything or God is nothing. There's no in between. He either is or he isn't. You can't have it both ways. You can't. So when you read Psalms 23:4, addressing the Lord Shepherd, says, right, David's talking about it's in the Lord's Prayer, your rod and your staff, they hurt me. Oh, no. They hit me. No, wait. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Now, you can't have it both ways. It either comforts you or it beats the crap out of you and it hurts you. I mean, how many times are you going to go back and forth with the scripture? Well, the rod's to punish the kids with and beat them. I'll take them out behind the shed, pull a willow branch off and whip them. Pull a rod off the willow branch, off the willow tree, and just start whipping them. Not to teach them. Yeah. That's not what the rod is. The rod mentioned in Psalm 23 is a symbol, this is important, is a symbol of the Lord's strength and protection. The rod was a sturdy wooden stick used as a weapon to hit the kids. Oh, no, wait, that's not what it says. That's not what it's for. It was used as a weapon to fight off wild animals who might have hoped to make an easy meal out of an otherwise defenseless flock of sheep. The shepherd also used the rod to help him keep count of the sheep with the flock. Did you hear that? Okay? The rod was there to ward off, right, and to protect the sheep from any danger coming after them. And to be able to sit out and point and count, make sure he had all the sheep underneath him. It wasn't used to do anything other than that. It's a method of protection. Believe me, if anybody would have come hurt my kids or my grandkids, they're going to pay a heavy price. That rod's going to come in real handy at that point in time. That's the only time. It's when something's coming in to threaten the flock, to threaten the sheep, to take its life. The shepherd had a rod to fight off the wolf, the bear, the lion, whatever it might have been. What happened when one sheep was lost? I mean, there's the prodigal son. There's so many stories about the son. But what happened when one sheep was lost? The shepherd would leave the 99 and go after the one. And Kathy and I have done that a lot in helping people in recovery. We leave the flock for a short period of time to go make sure we can hopefully bring this person back into the flock, right? But when he finds the sheep, what does he do? Does he beat it? Does he hurt it? Does he yell at it? No, he picks the sheep up, throws it over his shoulders, gets back to the flock, back to the camp that night, and they have a huge party celebrating the fact that he's got all of his sheep together again. The prodigal son, when he came back to his dad, was celebrated. His dad didn't beat him. His dad didn't shame him, even though he took all of his inheritance and went and spent it all on women and worldly things. When he showed back up to home, dad celebrated him. Do you understand this? The world's got this wrong. And I know there's a lot of you that grew up going, Randy, you are out of your mind with what you're saying. You don't know what you're talking about. It's right here in the Bible. I do know what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm a survivor of abuse. Absolutely. I've been beat. I've been shamed. You name it. But that's not God. And that's not discipline of the Lord. Young David recounted an incident of King Saul in which he probably used the shepherd's rod. Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, stuck it, and rescued the sheep from his mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it with his rod. We're to protect our children. The rod of God. The rod of God. It's a symbol of the Lord's strength and protection. The staff mentioned in Psalms 23 is a symbol of the Lord's guidance and loving kindness. Now remember, the staff is a long, slender stick, often hooked at one end. And it's used primarily to direct the flock. So he's going back and forth with the sheep. The flock will recognize him with the staff as well as the shepherd. One of the sheep might try to get off one way, and he'll gently put it back on course with the tip of it, right? Sometimes he would take the curved end of the staff. If a sheep was getting a little close to danger or wasn't paying attention or whatever, he'd reach out with the staff and pull that sheep gently back into the flock to keep it from danger. Sheep are kind of like kids. They wander. Little kids are kind of notorious for getting themselves in precarious positions. I mean, kids are kids. You know, they're going to do some dumb things. Well, I don't want to say they're dumb. They're learning. They're doing exploratory things, right? Are we going to let them go jump off a cliff? No. We're going to use our staff, whatever that might be. It might be an arm. We might be running faster than we've ever ran before. But we're not going to let our children get in that kind of harm. We're going to let them make mistakes. And there's going to be times they hurt themselves. That's all part of learning. It's all part of learning. I mean, we used to have BB gun fights out in the hills when I was growing up. It's like, it got out of control, but I learned I ain't doing this no more. I get hit one time when it's supposed to be 5 pumps and they pump it up 10 times. It's like, oh, that ain't cool. That hurts. It's how you learn. You make, I don't want to say mistakes. you trip. Simple as that. There's no mistakes in life. You're learning with everything that you do. If a sheep became trapped in a precarious position, the shepherd would loop the curved end of the staff around the neck of the sheep and retrieve it back to safety. You know, I don't know if some of you, if you have dogs. I mean, sometimes, you know, my dogs are, when I'm out running, they're running, and I let them run, and they leash really well. But there's some times when they're out running, I wish I had a really long staff to get them back into me instead of waiting for them to pull their head out of the sand and get back to me. You know, it's not to hurt them. W. Philip Keller, in his book, A Shepherd Looks at Psalm 23, right, comments on the uniqueness of the shepherd's staff. In a sense, the staff, more than any other item of the personal equipment, identifies a shepherd as a shepherd. No one in any other profession carries a shepherd's staff. It is uniquely an instrument used for the care and management of sheep, and only sheep. It will not do for cattle, horses, or hogs. It is designed, shaped, and adapted especially to the needs of sheep. Okay? It's just to protect. It's to keep them guided. It's to keep them in line. As parents, that's our job. There's times when we're not going to catch our children making a mistake. Our teens or young adults, whatever. There's times we're just flat out not going to be able to help them other than letting them make the mistake they made. We can sit there till we're blue in the face and tell them, hey, you don't want to do this. Please, I've been in your shoes, son. I've been in your shoes, daughter. And they're going to find out the hard way, just like we did. And I always talk, when we talk with a lot of parents, it's like, you have to understand that. Look at our lives. Look at the stuff that we did. And God took care of us. It comes back again to either you trust God or you don't. I'm not saying let your kids go out and do dumb stuff. Or I should say don't condone it. They're going to do what they want to do at a certain age. Okay? Together, the rod and the staff of Psalm 23 paint a picture of the divine shepherd who wields them well, handles them well. He is strong, competent, and trustworthy. He is present with the sheep, able to defend them and watch over them through all the dangers they face, knowing that we have such a shepherd who is ready to protect us from danger, keep us close, and rescue us when we go astray. Truly is a different comfort to us, the sheep. That's what we're there for, parents. God gave us free will. I can, God, why did you let this happen? I mean, how many times have I've talked to a lot of people, and asked this question, how many times have you had that little voice, don't do it? Nah, you don't want to be doing this. It's not going to be good for you. And you do it, you go against that voice, even as an adult, and the consequences aren't good. I remember in 2009 when I wanted to get another dirt bike. All right, I don't know, I was 52 years old. I can't remember how old it was. Doesn't matter. 50 something. And I remember the day I was going to go up and buy it, and I was in my office at work, and it just as clear as me talking to you right now. And I know God's voice because it's very distinct to me. Randy, don't buy the motorcycle. Don't buy it. And it was really convincing and really convicting strong. Nah, I'm going to go buy it. So what happens? The first day on the motorcycle, the very first day, thinking I was a youngster again, I crashed. Femoral hip fracture. Helicopter ride from Borrego Springs into Palm Springs. I didn't listen. I was told, I was warned, don't do it. And I did it. God gives us free will. And it's up to us. Are we going to listen to that voice or are we not? He can't. We have to learn. And the only way we're going to learn is by doing and tripping. And then picking ourselves up. And mom and dad picking up your children. Hey, what happened down there, man? You want to talk about it? Instead of putting them down and beating them down. You want to talk about it? So what is discipline? Discipline, one word, thousands of opinions. Is it punishment or is it obedience? Is it rules? Is it enforcement? Is it always doing the same thing? Is it always doing the right thing? Is it consistency? Is it doing what you're told? That might be a little bit of discipline there. Is it rigid? Is it boring? Do you even get a choice? Do you just comply? So let's look at the origin to really understand it, of discipline. The root word of discipline is disciple, which comes from the Latin word discipulus, meaning student. Okay? Most people believe a disciple is a follower, probably because of the religious context. Religion always gets in the way, always, in my opinion. And I feel very strongly about that. Religion is man-made, spirituality is God-given. But in reality, it means student, as in one who studies. The word discipline is from the Latin word disciplinia, meaning instruction and training, G. It is derived from the root word discere, to learn. Discipline is to study, learn, train, and apply a system of standards. Wow. Isn't that just amazing? There's no physical contact in discipline. And you shouldn't have to have any kind of physical contact with your children. It just shows that you have no control over your anger, no understanding of your child. It shows that you've lost control of your emotions and your feelings. It shows that, and I'm going to say this, because you know I'm bold, that you're not feeling real confident about being a parent that can handle a child that's unruly at the time. One of my granddaughters has got a slight mental disorder. And when it kicks in, she just is like, it's a different girl. And what we have learned to do is this. We recognize it right away. And we'll go up and we'll ask her, are you okay? I'm going to say I will. I'll go up and ask her, you okay? You want me to sit down and we can talk about this? And she'll just say, Grandpa, no, just leave me alone. I want to be alone. Okay, fine. I'm right inside the door. Nothing's going to happen. Her teachers at school for a long time were pushing her every time she would do this. Just push and she'd get more and more angry. And my daughter was just adamant about, you guys can't do that. And she would just, you can't do that. Because to her it was a form of punishment. Where we were working with discipline. We had to be, as grandpa, as mom, as dad, as grandma, as teacher, we have to be disciplined in the way we handle her. So discipline is to study, learn, train, and apply a system. And I could go on and on about it. There's different ways you can discipline children. Belittling children, teens, physically beating them, spiritually abusing them, that's not doing nothing but hurting them. I hate to tell you that. No, I don't really hate to tell you, but it's the truth. What is not discipline? Discipline is not rules. It's not regulations or punishment. You hear that? Not punishment. It is not compliance, obedience, or enforcement. It is not rigid, boring, or always doing the same thing. Military people are extremely disciplined in their behavior. They have to be, right? And it's actually a rigid form of discipline, but it's at that level, the discipline is going to be more rigid. But as a child, as a teenager, it doesn't have to be that rigid. We have to be allowed to be kids. We have to be allowed to be a child. We have to be allowed to be a teenager. Yeah, we want discipline in our life. But mom and dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, are you displaying the discipline in your life? What are you showing your children? What are you teaching the children? That's the big thing. What are you showing? What kind of discipline do you have that you can display to your grandchildren, your children, your nephew, your niece, whatever? Discipline is not something others do to you. Get that? Discipline is not something others do to you. It is not compliance. I already said that, I'm sorry. It is something you do for yourself. You can receive instruction or guidance, right? Or guidance. And what is it? When we go back here, by the way you treat them, rather bring them up with the discipline and instruction that comes from God, right? It says the discipline. Here it is right here. You can receive instruction or guidance from one or many sources, but the source of discipline is not external, it is internal. It's internal. We have to show them by our actions how we're supposed to act in the world. Again, kids are going to be kids. They're going to do dumb things. It's like, man, where did that come from? You could be the best parent in the world. But sometimes we just got to show our kids grace. Is God not showing us grace? Does God not forgive us every day? We have to show everybody, including our children, that same grace. Discipline is not obedience to someone else's standards to avoid punishment. It is learning and applying intentional standards to achieve meaningful objectives. It's not obedience to someone else's standards. Man, that is just speaks volumes. I mean, husbands and wives need to hear that one. A lot of husbands actually need to hear that because and I was guilty of that for several years of my marriage, actually, because I was trying to push Kathy into what I thought was the right way to be a wife. And the reality is, a woman is wonderful. She's absolutely, I can't, neither one of us are perfect, and she's not perfect by any means, I know that, but man, she has taught me so much about life, about love, about being married. Right? And she's still teaching me after 39 years. I know I'm still teaching her as well. So the difference between punishment and discipline. Discipline is a positive method of teaching a child self-control, confidence, and responsibility. Discipline happens before the fact. Punishment is after the fact. However, if it's after the fact, if the child didn't know that the action that he had committed that was going to result in some kind of physical punishment, which the Bible doesn't talk about, I'm sorry, it doesn't say it, then how can you punish him if he doesn't know that what he was going to do was against the rules or wrong? Well, I told him last month he had to do, that was last month, he's a kid, they're a teenager, all right? Sometimes they're boom, they're out there, and that's just where they're at right now. How many times I got to tell him until he gets it, until she or he gets it drilled into their head? And you've got to do it in a loving way. If one way's not working, let's figure out another way to talk to him. How about that? Well, that's not how I was raised. Really? How's that working for you today? Obviously not very good if that's what's happening. The key to positive discipline is teaching a child that behavior is okay and what behavior. The key to positive discipline is teaching a child what behavior is okay and what behavior is not okay. Okay? The focus on what children are expected and allowed to do. It includes catching kids being good and encouraging appropriate behavior. It also includes modeling appropriate behavior. I might have talked about this last week. I'm not sure, but this is my dog trainer when I had my Springer Spaniels. I was out with him one day, and he says, Randy, he goes, this world, these kids today are messed up. He goes, check this out. He goes, and it's parallel, right? So when we train dogs, we don't reward them for their negative behavior. We ignore it. All right? We ignore it to an extent. We don't say anything. Like if a dog, if he breaks a sit, we'll go back, pull the dog. We don't say a word. We just walk him back, sit him back down, tell him to sit, and we walk away. All right. We don't reward him with a biscuit or a pat on the head or a big data boy. But when they do what's expected of them, then we make a big deal out of it. Okay? Attention, negative or positive. What's happening in the world today? And mom and dad, you got to hear this. This right here is it says it perfect. I mean, it includes catching kids being good and encouraging appropriate behavior. It also includes modeling parents appropriate behavior. Catching kids doing good. What happens today, and I was just on another podcast, I think Tuesday, with Dr. Andrew Carter. Kids are getting attention, nationally and worldwide attention, by shooting up schools. What do you expect? Do you see me now, mom and dad? Do you hear me now, mom and dad? What's wrong with kids today? Mom and dad, go look in the mirror. Now, I know all parents aren't bad parents, okay? So don't get your panties in a wad. But that's the reality of it. Punishment is quite different from discipline. Punishment may be physical, as in spanking, hitting, or causing pain. It may be psychological, as in disapproval, isolation, and shaming. And man, there is nothing worse than psychological abuse. Nothing worse than that psychological damage, because it stays with you for a lifetime until you fall into the hands of a loving mentor or community of people that are going to help you rewire the hardwiring in your brain. They're going to teach you, no, that's not who you are. You're not stupid. You're not dumb. All right? You're none of that. You're a beautiful child of God. You're loved. You're lovable. You're enough. Psychological damage is the worst. Punishment focuses on past misbehavior and offers little or nothing to help a child behave better in the future. Man, that is so true right there. It focuses on past behavior and offers nothing. Think about this. It offers nothing to change his behavior in the future. It literally will just drive you to hate your parents more and more every day. No, yeah, it does. I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only one that thinks this way and feels this way. I am probably one of the only ones that's bold enough to talk this way. And I'm not going to shut up, because we have to come back to love. This world is messed up. Look what's happening right now with all our borders. How many kids are being abused on a daily basis? Beaten. Young kids beaten. Dying. Dropped off in the middle of the desert, scared to death. Sex trading, all that. We need to wake up, because it can happen in your own home, whether you want to believe it or not. When punishment is used, the person who punishes the child becomes responsible for the child's behavior. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you want to be responsible for your child's bad behavior? Think about this last shooting, school shooting. Parents were drug addicts. They knew he was a bad child. They knew everything was done. He shot up a school. They're going to be held accountable. And they rightfully should be held accountable. Or would you rather be held accountable and held in high esteem because of the work your child has done in the world? Whether it's just showing up every day and raising his family in a godly manner. Mark 9:42 says, whoever causes one of these, now listen parents, I really want you to hear this, and it's so important. This scripture is so important. You find it in Matthew and you find it in Mark 2 times. All right? And I really, really want you to hear this and get it in your heart, and do not discount it. Because if you're a Christian, especially if you're a Christian, and you believe that the Bible is the Word of God, and either God is everything or God is nothing, then I'm giving your warning right now. These scriptures, take heed. Mark 9:42. Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better for him if a great millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea. A millstone, 1,000,000 pounds. Jesus is saying, Paul is saying, Mark is saying that you'd be better off dead than to cause a little one to fall into sin. Now, we can look at that as a child, right? Because that's exactly what happened to me and a lot of abuse survivors. Or we can even look at it this way, right? Because it doesn't clarify either way, but we can look at it this way. How about newborn Christians that walk into a church and are led astray by a pastor, that are caused to fall and fall back into sin because of, there's a countless things I can go into. Pastor made promises, didn't come through. Somebody says something. There's 1,000 things. So not only parents, pastors, people, read these scriptures and understand what it says. Matthew, the same thing. Matthew 18:6. If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, okay? And I know a lot of people have stumbled because of pastors, okay? It would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Twice this is brought up in the New Testament, in Mark and Matthew. That's how strong this is. Just like, Father, do not provoke your children to anger. Take heed, parents. Don't just take, I had an English professor, and this is the one that's helped me in my studying. If you don't know the meaning of a word, if you're not sure of what something is saying, don't take it for face value and keep on using it and keep on talking about it. If you don't know the word, look it up. Make sure you're using it properly. If you don't know what a scripture is really saying, or you don't, do your homework. Dive into it. And that's what I have done. But not only that, I feel it in my spirit. God has given me this. This is my mission. This is my calling in life. God has given me the spirit of this in my soul. I know what I know beyond a shadow of a doubt. I'm going to close with one more scripture. And this one I really want to, I think everybody, and it might not just be parents on this one. We hear a lot of pastors, a lot of people, and if you just, if you pray and you do this, and I'm going to lead you into leadership, you're going to make $1 million, and you give God all these different things, right? These false, in my opinion, or my view, and I'm going to have something to say about this here in a minute, it's false teaching. I'm not saying that's not going to happen, right? I'm not saying that. But the way that it's preached, the way that it's taught, is guaranteed. Maybe it's implied, maybe it's not, but that's what comes across. Right? Well, Let's look at what Jesus did in the Garden of Gethsemane the day before he was going to be crucified. He's in the Garden of Gethsemane. I mean, I could just imagine what he's going through, right? It's Luke 22:42, right? And he's on his knees and he says, Father, if it's your will, take this cup from me, please. Take this away from me. Nevertheless, Father, not my will, but your will be done. Most powerful prayer, ending to any kind of a prayer is right there. We learned it. I learned it in recovery, and it was powerful. And believe me, it saved my life. Thy will be done, not mine. Are you trusting in God with your children? Are you inserting your will in your children and not trusting what God has? Are you trusting what some other man says rather than what the Bible says? Are you discouraged because you tithe and you give all of your time and you're doing all this work and you're giving freely of everything, yet you're not seeing any monetary, let's say, fruit? You don't see anything coming back your way. I understand it's frustrating, absolutely frustrating. But what's God's will for your life? God's will for my life is not the same will that he has for your life, or your pastor's life, or your pastor's wife's life. His will for my life isn't the same as Kathy's, my wife, or my children's. Just because we work hard, and believe me, I've busted my butt for years, doesn't mean that I'm going to retire as a millionaire or billionaire. Because obviously it's not God's will, or it would have happened. Either God is everything or God is nothing. So I would ask, in your prayers, first of all, these scriptures, right? I'll give them to you. Mark 9:42, Matthew 18:6. Get them in the spirit of your soul, right? Go to Ephesians 6:4, Colossians 3:21, Proverbs 14:2, and then read Psalms 23:4. I think it's 23:4. Let me find the right one. Or it's in Psalm 23, I'm not sure. But where the rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Either God is everything or God is nothing. You either believe in God or you don't believe in God. You can't be, yeah, one day I do when everything's going honky-dory and my kids are and then the next day when things are falling apart, is he God or is he not? But be warned about your children. I'm telling you. You ask me what's wrong with children, mom and dad go look in the mirror. And not all parents. I understand. This world's a mess right now. So all we can do is pray. Pray for our children. Pray for our teachers and pray for our government. Good news. My Healing the Wounded Child Within book has been translated, and at this point in time, it is in the hands of the editor and the formatter. So I'm hoping in the next month or so, I'll have all that back. Then I get it into Amazon. And so Healing the Wounded Child Within will be on Amazon, along with my English version, which is also on Amazon. You can get that paperback, Kindle, and Audible. Sorry about that. And then we also have the devotional to a 30-day devotional to wholeness. Right? It's a great devotional. It's got 3 contemplative questions at the end of every devotional. You absolutely. You'll get a lot out of that. And then the 7-day challenge, which is a workbook with Healing the Wounded Child Within. Also, visit our courageoushealers.org website, the foundation's website. And also changeyourlifestorynow.com, which is the life coaching. And my wife and I do marriage counseling, pre-marriage counseling. We do abuse counseling, addiction counseling. We do it all. It all kind of combines. And I'm SIMBA certified. Kathy does it with me. It's a great pre-marriage or even if you've been married a long time, assessment. Save your marriage before it starts, SYMBIS. You can check it out on SYMBIS.com. And if you're interested in any of that, please give us a call. We're taking new clients right now. We're set up. We're ready to go. We're really working on building this ministry up, but we can't do it without the clients that we're looking for. It seemed like there was one more thing. Also, I am putting a call to action out there for the foundation. Guys, go to the foundation, courageoushealers.org. Become a contributing member of the foundation. If it's $5 a month, $10, it doesn't matter. We can't grow this foundation anymore until we start receiving the proper amount of funds. It could be a monthly donation or whatever you feel is whatever the God puts in your soul, your spirit to do. We'd really, really, really appreciate it if you could do that. So remember this, and nobody tells you they love you today. Randy does. More importantly, God does. Everybody be blessed. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for joining us today. Bye.
This has been Healing Courageously with Randy Boyd. We will have a new episode every Monday. Please like us on iTunes or Google Play. If you would like to know more about the services available from Randy, please visit him at changeyourlifestorynow.com. Thank you for spending time with us. We'll see you next week. And remember, if nobody tells you they love you,